Hogan's Heroes, 1965 to 1971, brought humor to an unlikely setting, a World War II prisoner of war camp, charming audiences with its brilliant cast, clever plots, and unforgettable characters. But behind the scenes, many of the actors led lives far more complex and tragic than their on-screen roles suggested. Some faced personal demons, mysterious circumstances, or heartbreaking losses that shocked fans around the world. In this touching look back, we honor the stars of Hogan's Heroes who have tragically passed away. Their comedic genius gave us laughter, but their real-life stories reveal a haunting and often sorrowful legacy that deserves to be remembered. Bob Crane was born on July 13, 1928, and began portraying Colonel Robert Hogan in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at age 37. Hogan was the epitome of wartime wit and charisma, a pal with nerves of steel and a knack for outsmarting Nazi officers with a grin. Viewers adored Crane's cheeky confidence and charm, but his private life was far murkier. Behind the hero facade was a man obsessed with sex, control, and recording every moment of it. Born into a strict Catholic household in Connecticut, Crane's youth was shaped by guilt, repression, and emotional neglect. Mocked for his musical talents, he hid behind humor and perfectionism. Though he found success in radio, he quickly grew addicted to fame and sexual validation. His descent into darkness accelerated in the late 60s when he met John Carpenter, a videotech consultant. Together, they recorded hundreds of sexual encounters, often without full consent, feeding Crane's growing compulsion and alienating him from colleagues. Several actresses later described Crane as manipulative and emotionally predatory. His divorce from his first wife was explosive, and his second marriage to actress Cynthia Valdis was plagued by jealousy and scandal. Crane's career unraveled after Hogan's Heroes ended, with failed pilots, touring theater gigs, and whispers of his sexual obsession chasing him from job to job. His darkest failure came with The Bob Crane Show in 1975, a ratings disaster that exposed his inability to shake the Hogan image. By the late 70s, his life was in freefall, estranged from friends, broke, and under investigation for possible sex crimes. On June 29, 1978, Crane was found bludgeoned to death in a Scottsdale apartment, his head split open with a camera tripod. The murder remains unsolved. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $2 million, but his estate was mired in legal disputes, and his reputation was shredded. His extensive library of homemade tapes became a posthumous scandal, transforming Crane's image from national icon to cautionary tale. John Banner was born on January 28, 1910, and began playing Sergeant Hans Schultz on Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at the age of 55. Schultz, the bumbling, soft-hearted guard who often looked the other way at the prisoner's antics, became a beloved figure among audiences for his iconic phrase, "I know nothing." Nothing, a comic mantra that masked both cowardice and a refusal to support evil. The irony was bitter. Banner was a Jewish refugee who fled the Nazis in real life, only to become internationally known for portraying a German soldier. Born in what is now Ukraine, his childhood was scarred by anti-Semitism and political instability. His family lost their home during World War I, and John learned early to suppress fear behind smiles. In Hollywood, he was often cast as Nazi officers due to his heavy accent and broad build, roles that disgusted him, but paid the bills. Banner tried to reshape Schultz as a symbol of reluctant decency in a corrupt system, but his typecasting became inescapable. His biggest professional humiliation came when a planned dramatic film project he had helped develop was scrapped by the studio, who insisted he was only TV comedy material. Off camera, he battled serious food addiction and depression, gaining considerable weight during the show's run. Banner had one brief, turbulent marriage that ended quietly amid rumors of emotional detachment and jealousy over his growing fame. He had no children and kept his private life guarded, sometimes disappearing for weeks between filming seasons. By the early 1970s, his health was rapidly deteriorating, with untreated hypertension and a sedentary lifestyle contributing to his decline. He died suddenly on his 63rd birthday, January 28, 1973, in Vienna, Austria, due to a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. He left behind modest assets, including a small property in Vienna and television royalties, with an estimated net worth of $1 to $2 million. Though adored by fans, Banner's true legacy is layered, haunted by the past, confined by his on-screen image, and remembered more for laughter than the inner pain he quietly carried. Werner Klemperer was born on March 22, 1920, and debuted as Colonel Wilhelm Klink in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at age 45. Klink was absurdly pompous, utterly incompetent, and a perfect comic foil to Hogan, so much so that viewers often forgot the actor behind the laughable Nazi was a German Jew who had fled Hitler's regime. Klemperer insisted Klink be a fool, never heroic, never threatening, a personal statement against the regime that tore his life apart. But off stage, Klemperer was haunted by identity and legacy. The son of world-renowned conductor Otto Klemperer, Werner lived under the long shadow of artistic greatness. As a child, he endured relentless pressure and suffered physical abuse from music tutors determined to mold him into a prodigy. After fleeing to the U.S., he was typecast as villains in war films, roles that deepened his alienation and fed his alcoholism, a struggle he kept private for decades. Known for his cold formality and aloof demeanor, he was difficult on set, often refusing to rehearse with co-stars he deemed unworthy of the stage. His most bitter failure came when he was rejected by the Vienna State Opera for a dream role, a rejection that sent him into a depressive spiral. Though he later gained acclaim in Broadway and opera, personal fulfillment eluded him. He never had children and was married briefly to actress Louise Troy, whom he left after a volatile relationship full of screaming matches and infidelity rumors. Later in life, Klemperer suffered quietly from colon cancer, rarely appearing in public and shunning interviews. He died on December 6, 2000, in New York City at the age of 80. His estate, worth an estimated $5 to $10 million, included real estate, art collections, and music rights inherited from his father. Though publicly remembered for his Emmy-winning portrayal of Klink, his journals, unpublished until after his death, reveal a man tormented by displacement, creative inadequacy, and a relentless need to prove he was more than a punchline in a Nazi uniform. Robert Clary was born on March 1, 1926, and took on the role of Corporal Louis LeBeau in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 when he was 39 years old. LeBeau was the clever, smooth-talking French POW who could charm a guard, sabotage a Nazi plan, and cook a gourmet meal, all in the same episode. His character added energy and flair to the ensemble, but Clary's real story was anything but lighthearted. Born in Paris as the youngest of 14 children in a Jewish family, Clary was deported to Auschwitz at 16. He survived unimaginable horrors, forced labor, starvation, witnessing the deaths of his parents and 10 siblings, scars that never truly healed. After the war, he buried the trauma beneath an energetic pursuit of fame, moving to the U.S. and reinventing himself as a singer and actor. But the pain would seep out. He was known to walk off interviews when asked about his past before he was ready to confront it publicly. His career hit many roadblocks. Casting directors often viewed him as too European, and his accent became both a tool and a trap. His most devastating professional disappointment came in the late 1970s when a planned solo sitcom project based on his life was dropped by CBS at the last minute, an act Clary later suggested was rooted in anti-Semitic bias masked as market uncertainty. Despite being a survivor, Clary was not immune to bitterness. He was known to cut off longtime friends over minor slights, and his perfectionism made him difficult to work with on stage. He married Natalie Cantor, daughter of famed entertainer Eddie Cantor, but they never had children. Clary often said he feared passing on his trauma. In later years, he channeled his pain into activism, becoming a Holocaust educator and speaking publicly, often emotionally, about memory and survival. Clary died on November 16, 2022, in Los Angeles, at age 96, from natural causes. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated between $3 to $5 million, largely from speaking engagements, book royalties, and carefully managed investments. Larry Hovus, born February 20, 1936, in Wapato, Washington, took on the role of Sergeant Andrew Carter in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 when he was just 29 years old. Carter was the team's demolition expert, a sweet, wide-eyed optimist who found joy in explosives and camaraderie. Viewers loved his innocent energy, but Hovus himself was far more calculating and complex. Raised in a poor and deeply religious household, Hovus had a strict Pentecostal upbringing that left him feeling ashamed of his natural creative instincts. He was bullied for his soft-spoken demeanor and closeted sexuality, something he hid fiercely throughout his life due to Hollywood's brutal intolerance. Though married for decades, close friends and colleagues later speculated that his marriage was more of a convenient arrangement. Hovus fought tirelessly to balance his conservative roots with his place in a cutthroat industry. Behind the scenes, he struggled with severe anxiety and obsessive perfectionism. His transition from acting into writing and producing was marked by constant rejection and internal studio politics. The most humiliating moment of his career came in the early 90s, when he was quietly fired from Totally Hidden Video after it was discovered he had planted actors in supposedly real hidden camera scenes, a scandal that left his professional reputation in tatters. Though the media never blew it up, the show's cancellation and his forced exit left him reeling. Hovus retreated into academia, teaching drama at Texas State University, where he was admired for his tough love approach. Yet his personal life remained isolated. He had no children, and former students recall that he rarely spoke of his past. In later years, he developed esophageal cancer, but kept the diagnosis private, teaching until he physically could not stand. He died on September 9, 2003, in Austin, Texas, at age 67. At the time of his death, his estate, modest but stable, was valued between $1 and $2 million, mostly from residuals, real estate, and university earnings. Though not disgraced, Hovus died as a man forgotten by Hollywood, his gentle TV persona masking a life of repression, compromise, and quiet sorrow. Lazarus Skin, born on September 18, 1907, played General Albert Burkhalter beginning in 1965 at age 58, delivering a masterclass in comic authority. With his bulging eyes and guttural bark, Burkhalter was the relentless superior always breathing down Colonel Klink's neck, a caricature of German bureaucracy, but with an edge that made him strangely lovable. What few knew was that the man behind a mustache was carrying a history soaked in horror. Born Lazarus Skin in Vienna to Orthodox Jewish parents, Leon witnessed Austria's descent into fascism firsthand. He was arrested and tortured by the Gestapo in the 1930s, narrowly escaping with his life to the US, where he changed his name and joined the army. The trauma never left him. He reportedly had screaming fits in his sleep and once destroyed a film set after a co-star jokingly mimicked a Nazi salute. Askin's career was turbulent despite his talent. He struggled in post-war Hollywood, often reduced to playing stereotypical foreign villains with thick accents. Though outwardly jovial, colleagues claimed he was prone to outbursts and bouts of severe depression. He was blacklisted briefly during the McCarthy era due to his associations with progressive theater groups in New York. In 1971, he was sued by a young actress who claimed he made lewd advances on a soundstage. Though the case was dismissed, the whisper of scandal clung to him for years. His greatest heartbreak, however, came when he returned to Vienna in the 1990s to find his childhood home turned into a luxury apartment block. "My ghosts were replaced by boutiques," he once said bitterly. Skin never married and had no children. He lived modestly, surrounded by stacks of old books and newspaper clippings about fascism. Despite being celebrated in Austria later in life, he remained haunted by survivor's guilt, often telling friends he didn't deserve success because everyone who mattered was buried in Europe. Lazarus Skin died on June 3, 2005 in Vienna, at the age of 97 from natural causes. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated between $1 and $2 million, primarily from residuals, small investments, and Austrian arts grants. Richard Dawson, born Colin Lionel M. on November 20, 1932, in Gosport, Hampshire, England, played Corporal Peter Newkirk in Hogan's Heroes starting in 1965 at age 33. Newkirk, a cocky yet charming British POW, was beloved for his quick wit, mastery of accents, and mischievous defiance against the Nazis. He became a fan favorite and the unofficial heart of the series. But Dawson's off-screen life told a story far more complicated than the endearing rogue he played. Born into poverty during wartime Britain, Dawson's early years were a whirlwind of bombings, ration lines, and paternal absence. He dropped out of school and lied about his age to join the Merchant Navy, already hardened by street fights and petty theft. Fame didn't soften his edges, it amplified them. Dawson developed a reputation as an arrogant womanizer, manipulative with producers and hostile to co-stars, especially during the later years of Family Feud. His notorious kissing bandit persona, kissing every female contestant, wasn't always welcome, though the show's ratings skyrocketed. Several women complained privately about his behavior, calling it overbearing and inappropriate, though no official complaints were filed. Behind the charming grin was a man consumed by ego, known for temper tantrums, and once allegedly firing an entire crew over lighting disputes. His marriage to actress Diana Dors was filled with infidelity and violence, ending in a bitter divorce that left Dawson emotionally and financially drained. He later met Gretchen Johnson on Family Feud, but insiders said the relationship, while lasting, was far from idyllic. His son, Mark Dawson, was estranged for years, citing emotional neglect. Dawson battled alcoholism, and his career collapsed in the 90s after multiple failed pilots and a reputation for being impossible to work with. He died on June 2, 2012 in Los Angeles, at age 79 from complications of esophageal cancer, reportedly penniless. His estate was worth a shockingly low $100,000. Most of his earnings vanished due to failed investments, gambling, and legal fees. Despite his fame, Hollywood offered no grand tribute. For many, Richard Dawson remains a tragic contradiction, beloved on screen, but deeply broken off it. Ivan Dixon, born April 6, 1931, took on the role of Staff Sergeant James Kinchloe in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at the age of 34. Kinchloe stood out as the show's moral compass, brilliant, composed, and indispensable to the team's success in sabotaging the Nazis. As the only black main cast member in a series set during World War II, Dixon's presence was groundbreaking, and his performance earned both admiration and backlash in equal measure. But behind the image of stoic strength lay a man grappling with rage and frustration toward a Hollywood system that pigeonholed him. Born in Harlem to impoverished parents, Dixon's early life was steeped in silence and suppression. His father, a failed preacher turned janitor, often humiliated him for wanting to act, while his mother disappeared into mental illness when he was still a boy. Though his early career showed promise, Dixon's refusal to play subservient roles alienated producers. After Hogan's Heroes, he was quietly blacklisted from major acting gigs for being too political. He was known to storm off sets if scripts reinforced racial stereotypes. His biggest scandal came in 1972, when he was arrested for disorderly conduct during a civil rights protest outside NBC studios. Though the charges were dropped, the event tarnished his reputation among conservative executives. Behind closed doors, Dixon was reportedly difficult to direct, with some crew members accusing him of verbally abusing assistants and demanding script rewrites at the last minute. His personal life was no more stable. He was married for nearly 50 years, but the relationship was marred by infidelity and long periods of separation. One of his children struggled with drug addiction, and another disowned him for years, blaming Ivan's emotional coldness. Friends described him as brilliant but deeply lonely, plagued by insomnia and paranoia in his final years. Ivan Dixon died on March 16, 2008, in Charlotte, North Carolina, at age 76, from complications of kidney failure. At his death, his estate was valued at around $500,000, much of it tied to a small radio station he owned in Maui, Hawaii. Cynthia Lynn was born on April 2, 1936, and portrayed Fräulein Helga in Hogan's Heroes starting in 1965 at age 27. As Klink's sultry and efficient secretary, Helga balanced stern military precision with just enough flirtation to charm both viewers and captors alike. But Lynn's real life was far less controlled. Born Cynthia Valdis in war-torn Latvia, she and her mother fled Soviet invasion on foot, eventually finding refuge in the United States, a trauma that shaped her lifelong distrust of authority and deep-rooted anxiety. Her Hollywood breakthrough was short-lived, and the fame that came with Hogan's Heroes quickly spiraled into a maze of entanglements. She began a tempestuous affair with Bob Crane, sharing not just his bed but also, reportedly, his dark world of voyeurism and recorded sexual escapades. Though never charged or directly involved, Lynn was once questioned in relation to Crane's murder investigation, which left a stain on her legacy. Her most startling secret came years later when her daughter, Lisa Brando, publicly claimed Marlon Brando was her biological father, a bombshell that rocked the tabloids but was met with Brando's silence and denial. The ensuing paternity rumors and legal whispers added layers of scandal that haunted Lynn for decades. Her acting career declined sharply after leaving Hogan's Heroes, and she faded into the margins of Hollywood, surviving on minor roles, memoir sales, and autograph shows. Her autobiography, Escape to Freedom, revealed bouts of depression, multiple failed relationships, and a failed suicide attempt in the 80s that she never publicly addressed. She died on March 10, 2014, in Los Angeles, from multiple organ failure brought on by hepatitis. At 77, her estate was modest, valued at around $1 to $2 million, consisting primarily of royalties, book proceeds, and residuals. Though remembered by fans as the beautiful blonde behind Klink's desk, Lynn's life was defined by flight, from war, from trauma, and ultimately from a Hollywood dream that never delivered. John Cedar was born on January 22, 1931, and took on the role of Corporal Carl Langenscheidt in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at the age of 34. Langenscheidt was the soft-spoken subordinate, diligent, often confused, and trapped between obedience and absurdity. His presence offered a quiet comedic relief, and yet few knew the immense duality in Cedar's real life. Raised in Detroit by an emotionally volatile father and a chronically ill mother, Cedar sought escape through theater. But his early years were marred by financial ruin and guilt. His younger brother died of a treatable illness because the family couldn't afford medical care. This grief followed him into adulthood and drove his obsession with control. Though known in the industry as a kind mentor, Cedar was notorious behind closed doors for his intense mood swings and compulsive perfectionism. He clashed with directors over minor script changes and once walked off a film set for being asked to perform in less than ideal lighting. His biggest career failure came in the late 1970s when a screenplay he co-wrote was stolen and reworked into a low-budget horror film that he never received credit for. Legal action failed, and the betrayal deeply embittered him. In his personal life, Cedar's long marriage masked quiet dysfunction. His wife, Barbara, reportedly filed for separation twice during the 1980s over his erratic behavior and obsessive work hours. He fathered no children, devoting his later years to coaching actors, though some students described his methods as brutal and emotionally invasive. Cedar also ran a script typing service, a humbling pivot that spoke volumes about his fading presence in Hollywood. Diagnosed with leukemia in the late 2000s, he kept his illness hidden from almost everyone. He died on April 14, 2011, in Los Angeles at age 80. At the time of his death, Cedar's net worth was estimated between $1 to $2 million, consisting of modest property holdings and royalties from decades of film and television work. Sigrid Valdis, born on September 21, 1935, played the role of Hilda in Hogan's Heroes in 1966 at the age of 31. As Colonel Klink's secretary, Hilda balanced flirtatious charm with sharp efficiency, becoming an unlikely fan favorite for her nuanced mix of loyalty and unwitting betrayal. Her glamorous presence and comic timing helped redefine the limited female roles in a male-dominated series, earning her enduring affection from audiences. But behind the soft curls and sultry smile was a life marked by turbulence and unresolved trauma. Born Patricia Annette Olson, she was raised in a fractured household where abuse and neglect were whispered about but never addressed. She entered modeling to escape, then slid to acting roles that rarely respected her depth. Her career hit its peak on Hogan's Heroes, but after marrying co-star Bob Crane in a highly publicized wedding on set in 1970, her life descended into chaos. Their union, often described as volatile, was plagued by Crane's infamous sex addiction, home videos, and swinging lifestyle, with Valdis allegedly walking in on him with other women more than once. Though she never spoke publicly about it, close friends confirmed her mental health suffered greatly. When Crane was brutally murdered in 1978, they were estranged, and she became embroiled in a media circus and dark theories surrounding his death. She later fled Hollywood and lived in relative obscurity in Seattle. Though she stayed silent about the scandals, her absence spoke volumes. On October 14, 2007, she died from lung cancer in Anaheim, California, at the age of 72. Her estate, largely composed of real estate assets in California and Washington, as well as long-running syndication royalties, was estimated at $16 million. Despite her efforts to preserve Crane's legacy, she could never escape the shadow of that gruesome crime, or her own pain cloaked in Hollywood silence. Bernard Fox, born Bernard Lawson on May 11, 1927, in Port Talbot, Wales, took on the role of Colonel Rodney Crittenden in Hogan's Heroes in 1965 at the age of 38. Crittenden was the epitome of British buffoonery, an aristocratic, pompous, yet well-meaning officer whose constant blunders threatened the success of every mission. His character was beloved by audiences for injecting absurdity into tense scenarios, and Fox played him with gleeful self-deprecation. But behind the affable mustache and polished accent, Bernard Fox led a life layered in contradiction and unspoken tragedy. Born into a long line of performers, Fox was pushed into acting before he could walk, performing in theaters across Britain under punishing schedules by age 4. His childhood, though theatrical, was lonely and over-disciplined, marred by a cold relationship with his father, who demanded perfection and once locked Bernard in a closet for forgetting lines. These early traumas led to a life of emotional suppression, masked by wit and charm. Though his military service in both World War II and the Korean War was real, insiders later revealed he returned from battle with untreated PTSD, nightmares, drinking binges, and sudden fits of rage that were carefully hidden from the public eye. On set, Fox was mostly jovial, but co-stars recalled an off-limits aura around his personal life. Despite the appearance of a stable marriage to Jacqueline Fox, their union was quietly turbulent. She filed for legal separation in the late 70s, though they never finalized a divorce. Fox's career remained steady, but came at a cost. He was passed over for leading roles repeatedly, told by agents that his look was too British and too comical for serious parts, a rejection that led to bouts of depression. In the 1980s, a string of failed investments in UK theater productions drained a significant portion of his savings, though he eventually recovered through voiceover work and steady guest roles. Fox died on December 14, 2016, in Van Nuys, California, from heart failure at the age of 89. His estate, including property in Burbank and investments in British television archives, was valued at approximately $3 to $5 million. Howard Kane, born on January 2, 1926, stepped into the role of Major Wolfgang Hochstetter in Hogan's Heroes in 1966 at the age of 40. With his bug-eyed glares, sharp snarls, and the unforgettable line, "Who is this man?" Hochstetter was a fanatically paranoid Gestapo officer who injected chaotic energy into every scene. Though a side character, he became iconic, with audiences both laughing at and fearing his manic intensity. Off-screen, Kane was born Howard Elmer Cohen into a conservative Jewish household in Nashville, an environment that gave him little room to express emotion or creativity. He stuttered badly as a child and was mocked relentlessly, which fueled his obsession with speech, eventually mastering over 30 dialects. But his career was a patchwork of highs and deep disappointments. Despite his immense talent, Hollywood saw him as a character actor only, and he was perpetually passed over for lead roles. In the late 1970s, Kane privately battled depression, and he withdrew from the spotlight after a humiliating audition for a major Broadway revival, where a director reportedly told him to stick to the Nazis. He turned to folk music as refuge, but even there, resentment brewed. Fellow musicians complained that he dominated festivals and used fame to manipulate judging outcomes. His marriage, though long-lasting, was quietly troubled, with close friends revealing his wife often lived separately for months at a time due to his unpredictable moods. In his final years, Kane struggled with chronic heart issues and the isolation of being forgotten by an industry he once helped shape. He died of a heart attack on December 28, 1993, in North Hollywood, California, at age 67. His estate, though modest by Hollywood standards, was estimated at $1 to $2 million, consisting of music royalties, acting residuals, and a small collection of rare instruments. Today, while his name is often buried in credits, his character remains etched in pop culture, an ironic fate for a man who once said he only ever wanted to be remembered as more than a punchline. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from Hogan's Heroes who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.